Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Fellas, the ultimate Formula One podcast for fans by the fans. In today's episode, we will be discussing a kid's journey into Formula One. And this is maybe a part two or part three series. Today, we're going to discuss part one. But really, how does an individual or a youngster or a kid get into professional racing that will lead him to Formula One? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the fellas. And don't forget to ring the notification bell and stay up to date in all things the fellas. And today we have Ray and myself, Simon. And I want to preface this by stating that I am not, and Ray is not the guru of how to get into Formula One. This is just a method that I know. And the method that I know is really based on a nonprofit that we put together to get kids in inner cities into motorsports. It wasn't just racing, but it was also getting them into pit crew management, being an engineer, being a mechanical engineer, and really trying to provide them with different avenues and different ways to live life. And we'll get into a lot of things such as salaries and process of getting to Formula One, which is very difficult. We all know there's only 20 drivers in the world right now that are in Formula One, but there's a process to get there. And you have to go through Formula 4, 3, 2, and 1. And sometimes you can skip this depending how good you are. But we'll get into all those details in this episode. On the part two of this episode, we'll probably bring in some professionals that have actually gone into or been a part of that journey and trying to help individuals learn a little bit more about the process. And Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's an interesting topic, right? Because, of what I've heard, right, is that everybody needs to start with karting. And in the U.S., I'm not aware of, what region of the country, part of the country you would need to stay in order to do that type of karting, right? Because my exposure is, the local karting that we have around, right? And it's not, do we have a place that it's not like what I've seen some of the European tracks are like, where they have a formal track set up just for karting. So my question would be like, is karting the foundation for the beginning of that process? Right.
I think it is. That's just based off my experience. So Benevo is our nonprofit, and we work with a company called Adams Motorsports Park. They are in Riverside, California, and that's an outside karting track where the owner Troy Adams and his wife Kara Adams, they put in the coaching for karting. They take kids from all over California and they bring them to their track and they actually train them on how to get to the next level and get to a professional level. And it starts with karting. It's the first open wheel exposure to the sport. They're doing a killer job as far as exposing different types and have a very different, diverse group of kids that come through their program. But working with them and getting sponsorship for the kids with them, I've noticed that going through the karting and learning the mechanics and learning the dynamics of the chassis and the carts and learning how to understand apex and turns and passing and different strategies all start there at a young age. They have kids there from 8 to 10 years of age that are starting in go-karting and work their way up. Their son, who's actually right now has qualified for Formula 4, will be going to Formula 4 this year, went the route of karting. Once he won a lot of local races, he then went to international races, Mexico, Italy, Spain, and then competed with the highest level individuals there. And you really have to go through the Europe circuit too to really understand and hone in your racing skills. In Europe, just to give you a little content, here locally on a lot of the races that he went through, you bring your cart and your cart can be tweaked however you want it to be tweaked. Some of the carts have motors in there that are twice the size. Some of the carts are
Mm.
There isn't really a level playing field in how you win in some of the circuits around here. But don't get me wrong, there are some leagues around here where everyone has to have the same CCs as far as engine and things like that. However, for the most part, they don't.
From my exposure for like you have IMSA, right? They call it balance of performance, right? When you
Mhm.
have multiple manufacturers on track, they try to make sure they find some way to even out the performance of the cars, right? As far as that, you're saying, and from what I heard, and I'm just confirming that some of the leagues that are here, they don't do something like that where they put. So how did they don't put try to find a level setting for the carts or so my question, if that's not the case, then how do they categorize the people that participate? Right? Is it by
Right.
age?
It's by age, by cart, by CCs,
Oh, okay, the
and
engine. Yeah, okay,
right, the engine size, things of that nature. There's different variations, but I want to preface by saying this: not all leagues here do that. There are some leagues where you have to bring your cart, but
mm-hmm.
it has to meet certain specs, right?
Okay, okay,
Um, Once it meets those specs, then you can do
right.
whatever you want outside of those specs. So
Okay,
let's
so they
say
have
so let's say you have an engine spec, you have a tire spec, you have a chassis spec, but
right.
anything else is
It's
fair
fair
game,
game.
right?
Okay, good. I got you. So everything that's the so my one just question that popped in my head was so are the leagues that are here any of them like is the FIA involved in any of this? Right? Is it is it's no FIA that's at this level? That from what you know?
From what I know right now, no, not at go-karting, right? But
Okay,
I'm assuming once you get to a certain level, once you get to Skip Barber or Formula 4, there
right,
are FIA gets involved in those things. The
right.
European races, and I can speak on this a little bit because I know Truly just was racing there and will be racing there this upcoming week. They provide you with a cart,
Oh,
and everyone has the same specs all the way around, right? So
oh
everyone's
wow.
cart is running the same speed. Everyone's cart can make the same turn. Everyone's cart has the same tires, has the same tire wear, same chassis, and that's when you know if you're competing and you're in the top 5 of those races, you know that you have what it takes to get to the next level, right?
Okay,
And because everyone has the same card. Now it's purely knowledge, skill, and wisdom that gets you to win the race or be in the top 5, right?
right.
And it's very easy in karting. If you ever watch some of the professional karting in Europe, you could be in first place on the first 5 laps, and you make one small mistake, and it's not even a mistake that you go off the track. It's just one mistake going around a turn where 5 carts can pass you, and you're in sixth place on one turn.
Yeah, I've
Right?
seen. I think I've seen a couple on YouTube where it's like a big train
Yes,
of
it's a big
cars.
train,
I
like
can't
NASCAR.
remember if I can't recall. I want to think it's maybe more of a European setting where yeah, like you make one wrong move, and if it doesn't play out for you, the whole like a whole train comes by you,
Yeah,
and you get pushed to the back.
right, because
Right.
they're on each other's bumpers, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
if you
Okay.
if you mess up a little bit and second place gets ahead you, third place is on his bumper, fourth place is on third place bumper. You're not squeezing back in. It's almost like
Oh wow.
NASCAR. You have to wait until there's an opening, and you can easily go
Okay.
from first place to 10th place if there's a big train going down,
Well,
right?
okay.
So
I got you. Got you. Got you.
it's
Wow.
really the level of skill that I've seen, and I've seen Truly do this now a few races where he's qualified third or fourth, make his way to the front, and no one's passing him. He has that
And
skill that no one can pass him once he gets to the
so
front.
in that race, those let you observe, it's a local setup or is it a spec card or was it
It's a
he
spec
brought his
cart
own
in Europe. Yeah, in Europe it's a
okay.
spec cart. So they give
Oh,
you
so
a
he's
car.
running there now.
Yeah,
Oh
he's
wow.
running there.
Okay.
They give you a car, and then
Yeah.
you lock that car up when you leave to come back to the United States. No one can touch it. You put it in storage. You lock it up, and then when you come back, everything they pull it out. They make sure the chassis and the tires are up to spec for the new races. So everyone's on the same level playing field. Sorry. Um, and it's exciting to see the level of skill, even at 13. Truly, he's only 13 years old,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay.
And he's almost 6 feet, and which is a little scary because most people in carts are within the 5 feet range. But his
Right.
skill level is outrageous when it comes to competing with others. He's just really skilled. George Russell's 6'2", 6'3", so that doesn't really scare anybody, right?
So the other question comes to mind is that with the cart, then since it's a spec cart, do they provide anybody to help them prepare the cart, or they bring their own, representative to work on the cart? You
So
know,
great question. What I've learned, because I have yet to go to a race in Europe, I plan to go to
understood.
one. I plan
Right,
to go to one this year, and we'll
right.
definitely have some professionals to come in to rebut anything that I say here today, guys. I just want to put a disclosure. This is just based on what I've been told. What I understand is the amount of money to race in Europe, if you're from United States, is around $20,000 to $30,000. And that's just a race. That's not even including the
Oh, so
travel
that's for one race.
for one
No,
race,
or is it for
one
the
weekend.
season?
That's for
Oh,
one weekend.
20,000 for one weekend.
Correct.
And it doesn't include travel accommodations in that
No,
20K.
it
Wow.
includes your team to race that weekend, and your team is a highly skilled go-karting team in Europe. Everyone has the same level of team. So it's not like
Okay.
Formula One when Red Bull is just out skilling everybody else. Everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone has the same specs, same mechanical engineers, same everything. And you're paying, that 20,000 is paying for their time, paying for them to set up your car, paying for them to give you techniques and tips on that track. So you're paying for your team to go kart that weekend.
So what's the typical size of a team then?
I don't know. I'll be very
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's probably about 5 or
Okay.
4.
Okay.
It's the typical size of a team that I've seen here has been Truly's dad, and one other mechanic, right? But Truly's dad, Troy, is a former NASCAR racer, and he coaches go kart. So it
Mm.
probably on an average might have 2 or 3 people, but because his dad is so knowledge and so full of knowledge, he probably only needs himself and one other technician to help change
Okay.
tires and things like that, right? Check the
Okay.
pressures of the tires, things like that. That's all the things that you see on the TV on the pit crews. Same thing for a go kart. It's just at a smaller scale.
So they do wet races too?
I've been in California where it was damp, not necessarily raining, but it
What?
was damp.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So they have like wet tires also,
right.
like you'd find with some cars.
Well, I've seen tires with threads, but no, you don't. It's not something that is standard or normal. So
So the all right. So you say you see them with a tread pattern on them. You've seen tires, but so the typical tire is like a slick type of thing where there's no tread
correct.
pattern, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay,
Yeah, I've
gotcha.
yet to see truly race with threaded tires or wet tires or intermediate tires, if that's what you're
Right.
getting at.
Yeah.
But that's a great question. That's something that we definitely will ask our professionals when we have them come on. There's one thing that I want to share with the audience and share with you. Most people don't know this. When you go karting at a high level, you're putting a lot of stress on your chassis. Even though it's a go kart, you're putting more stress on that chassis than you would think is being
Hmm.
applied. There are some teams in the go kart industry that after one race, because they have the money, they would change out the chassis.
So after one race, they'll change the chassis out. So do you happen to know like what type of materials they make these things out of then? Because for it to be so delicate that for that the stress limit is exceeded, or the rigidity of the chassis is gone then after the race, then I guess that's what
It's
they're
not
chasing
completely
then.
gone, but the chassis
It's
becomes much more
diminished.
flexible.
It's
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
diminished so that they don't
yeah.
have the response they're feeling.
Right. Um,
So
from what I've seen, it looks like tubular steel.
okay,
Right?
okay, yeah,
And it's amazing. I didn't know that. It wasn't until Troy Adams told me one day that we will probably race this go kart maybe 6 or 7 times, and then we'll change it out and put something. I'm like, why? So the chassis stresses and it gets flexible, and you're not as rigid around the corners, and you don't have
yeah.
full control. And I just didn't know that, and that's part of the cost just to get into a professional or semi-professional league. And it's amazing. If you're at Truly's level, and Truly's 13, just think about this now. And if you're at his level and you're traveling internationally, minimum cost per year is $100,000. That's minimum.
So, and that's at the go-kart level we're
That's at
talking.
the go-kart level, right?
Wow.
It can
Okay.
easily escalate to 300,000
At the go-kart level.
at the go-kart level.
Wow.
Now you see why there's a lot of, and I hate to use this word because I don't know of another word, but it feels like there's a lot of nepotism in professional racing.
Right.
I don't think that's the right word. I think it's appropriate to use that word, but there should be another word or a derivative of that word that says if you're in racing as a professional, you're most likely your kids are going to benefit from you being in a pro racer, that they are going to be able to pay that 100,000 to 300,000 and gain the knowledge at a young age to qualify and be a professional racer by the time they're 16, 17 years of age. And that's why you don't see a lot of new families or new individuals, and especially like F1, F2, IndyCar, NASCAR. It's someone in that lineage, for the majority, not for everyone, is able to support your kid based on their knowledge of the sport and help you get to that next level. It's almost like an NBA player. If you have a son that wants to play basketball, you have a leg up on everyone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
However, basketball is one of those things that everyone can play, and then you just
Yeah.
pick out the special ones, right? When
Mm.
Formula One, not everyone can play because you need 100 grand to just throw away every
At
year
the karting level.
at the karting level.
So does kids try to pick up sponsorship at that level then? At that karting
Right.
level?
It kids try to pick up sponsorships, and one of the reasons why I started a nonprofit was just so I can try and give corporate America an opportunity to have a nonprofit to help a sponsor, to help a kid without having all the tax issues that come along with just giving a gift at a high level, right? And especially in our community, I wanted to also expose kids to a different generating revenue for themselves as they grow up, right? It
Mm-hmm.
you Yes, it's nice if you're a lawyer, it's nice if you're a doctor, it's nice if you're an accountant, it's nice if you play professional sports, but a lot of teenagers, especially boys, but also loved, I know growing up you see street racing all the time for
Right.
kids that really shouldn't be street racing, but
Yeah.
also they don't think there's money in it, except for if they're in a community of street racers. There really isn't a lot of money or sustainable money in
Right.
motorsports in their mind, and that's further from the truth. Just looking at Formula One, a pit crew manager can make $1 million a year.
So my question then would be then, is there a formal degree pathway to be in one, or is it just, being starting out from the lower ranks, like say you start out as a tire carrier, you prove yourself there, then you show some aptitude for maybe some mechanical ability, and you prove yourself there and you work your way up the chain, or is that, if you have to have some sort of formal, education, like coming as a mechanical engineer or something like that, or data engineer or something like that to do that type of thing.
I think it's all of the above. And the beautiful thing
Mm-hmm.
about it is, I'm not sure if it limits you not having a degree, but it definitely helps you to have a mechanical engineering degree or a
Right.
computer science degree, so you can help with all the telemetry and
Yeah.
softwares and things like that, and reading it and making sure you understand it. But also, if you're good with your hands and you're just mechanically inclined, you can definitely work your way up and go to something like RTI or those institutes where you can get a degree in mechanical engineering, and then again, it really depends on who you know and how you can get your way into those avenues. Right?
Right. Right.
It's not a lot of opportunities there if you don't know the right people.
If you're not plugged into the community, and that kind of goes back to what you said with the peoples whose parents has forged their presence in the community, kind of made those connections so that if you're coming up as a younger person, you could
Right.
be part of it, right? And I would honestly say, even to a certain extent, it's just the advent of the internet and sharing information has kind of let some data out. Is like I think, like with the sim racing, like in a funny way, COVID hit helped sim racing move a hurdle and become more prevalent, right? Because you're seeing how people now are showing that that they did some sim racing and then they go to the track, like professional drivers in the GT realm doing that. And I would, even though I heard that the Formula One teams have their own sim, right, for drivers to look at get an idea of what the track is like before they get there, and it's also how to, like they can transport some of the car settings into the
Right.
sim for them to get familiarity. But yeah, I could see that. But I wanted to ask on the other side. So just one more thing with the if they get sponsorship, do they have to? Do they put it? They display it like on their what you call it there? Like you have the fire suit type of thing, right? Do they then put it on there to advertise for the sponsor? Is that part of it also,
Yeah.
or Okay, okay,
Yeah. So like we were fortunate to get a sponsor for Truly, and then we're going to advertise for them. I think that's the question you're asking, whether or not that
right. But
video.
is it on the driver's driving suit when he's out there to say that
Yes.
the sponsor's name is being shown,
Right.
in a public space,
Right. And
right?
that's just, win-win for everyone, especially if the corporate sponsors is paying for your travel or paying for your trips or paying for something.
Right, exactly,
That you get
exactly.
they get the marketing or the branding that comes along with it. And that's kind of where we as a nonprofit benefit, right? We help bring in that revenue
Right,
for the kids. I'm telling you, I've seen 3 outstanding drivers. One was an 8-year-old. I won't mention his name right now, but I'm hoping to have him on the podcast. I think he's 9 now, almost going to 10. That, in my mind, could challenge anybody in a kart, young or adult. Just like Truly is really really skilled. But this person, this young kid was scary, and how he can focus in when he's on the track and get
okay,
upset when he made a mistake, and knew when he made a mistake and knew how to correct it. And I say to myself, when I was that age, maybe when I was playing video games, I was
right,
that
right,
in tune to something.
right,
But I've seen some really talented kids, and that to me is why I do it. It's just giving the kids a different opportunity to have a salary or to make a living, especially in inner cities or in major cities where motorsports is not something that is
it's
prevalent,
advertised, yeah. So
advertised.
right,
Mhm.
so I take it his parents are not, doesn't have any. Well, let me not assume. Let me ask. So, does his parents have any? Did they have any interest in motorsports? How did he then get to be started in the karting thing?
Yeah.
Was it like
We're gonna
they
have
took
to
him to a
ask him when he
kart?
comes on the podcast. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. Oh, okay, okay,
But
okay.
yeah, I
And
don't.
he's being coached though, right? He has a coach
Yeah,
that's coaching. Oh, okay,
he's getting coached by Troy Adams, right?
okay,
He's I've seen him at the Adams Motorsports Park, and
right,
there's a lot there. I see females there too, which really excites me, and seeing how they're getting coached from a young age.
right,
You see, I think Danica Patrick did a great job of inspiring young female talent.
right.
And I think Lewis has expired some. One of the things that I think, I still ask people today if they even know who Lewis Hamilton is, especially in our community, and some of them really don't. But in the last 3 years, in the last 2 to 3 years since COVID and the Netflix special,
Yes, yeah,
Formula One has bumped up as far as ratings and as far as viewership 40%.
right, right,
40%. There was a time when you can go to Austin, Texas to Circuit of Americas, and you'd pay maybe $500 for a ticket. You can't get that now in the space of the
mm,
last 2 or 3 years, right? And don't even mention Vegas or Miami. That's just right now. No one can really afford it unless you have a corporate account there, right? So
right,
um, it's jumped up so much that I think is great for the sport. But like
right,
you said, COVID helped, and people being home and watching TV and
yeah,
watching that Netflix special really helped the popularity of Formula One. So I think we're going to get a lot more interest, which is great, in motorsports. And just to finish up, I know I said the pit crew manager makes about $1 million a year, but the pit
right,
crew team can make anywhere between, $100,000 to $300,000 a year, right?
Okay. Right.
So there's so many different. You're not racing, but you're mechanically. You're changing the tires. You're there at night when there's an accident, and you're changing out the axles or the tires or any of the damaged parts. That's your job, right?
Hmm.
So you have to be mechanically inclined. It's better if you have a mechanical engineering degree because you help also with some of the engineering. And it just really, to me, can bring another revenue stream into our community if we have more of that in our community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. It's a it's not one of the normal pathways, right? And it's
Hmm.
bringing a new pathway for you to be if you have that talent to be recognized and hopefully then be compensated for that talent, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a good thing because yes, I could say that as Formula One came around, as my watching Lewis being there, I watched it more, right, to see what's going on, and to add to that, yeah, him winning helped that also. But I agree with you that the Drive to Survive series um, was a big win for Formula One, right? It was that risk, paid off in spades for them because it did bring people that were more bonded to the drivers, the different characters they were, to come out and watch a race, and see what's going on. So yeah, yeah, I agree. It's
Yeah.
even though it was very bad, the COVID, and impacted a lot of families and stuff like that. It's still some people it aided some industries in some ways.
What I've learned in life is every situation generates another, whether it's good or bad. A good situation can have an effect on something that creates a bad situation down a year later, right?
Hmm.
And a bad situation like a pandemic can open up doors for other things that are good, even though it was a bad situation at the time.
Right,
It can really open up doors. And it's you always have to try to find the good in a bad situation, right? there's
right,
there's always an opportunity there. And it's great if we have everyone knows that. I think most people do know that, but some people, they get so caught up in the bad situation and they don't move forward and say, all right, how can I make the best of this situation here?
right,
And I think that's what happened with Formula One and the Drive to Survive episodes. I watched the first year and I was hooked.
right,
And I'm a
right,
Formula One guy.
right,
So it's really interesting how that really propelled the sport and allowed us to have three tracks in the United States that people are where it's selling out where it wasn't selling out before.
yeah, no, again, it allowed people to make connection with the participants that in the series, and I think that was the big win for them, right, when they did it.
Right.
So it was a big. It's again, everything is risk, and that risk paid off in spades, as the saying would say, for them as far as bringing in additional eyes on the sport and therefore additional revenue. So yeah, it's interesting. So Truly, right? That's his name.
Truly
The the,
Adams.
the,
Hmm.
the young gentleman that's doing
Hmm.
that, right? So he's doing the European circuit in go karts right now, right?
Yeah.
Is that so? Do you know? So do you know like what would be next after he leaves the go kart? You say he excels at that, continues to excel at that. What would be his next step?
So his next year, this year, which we're finding funding for, is Skip Barber and Formula Four. So he's qualified for
Oh,
Formula Four, and so he's
okay,
going to go to Skip Barber School this year. One of his races is going to be in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, I think. One of the
okay,
UAE. Let's just start there
okay.
this year. Um,
United Emirates.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I want to attend that. But that's the next thing for him. You can't really race Formula Four internationally until you're 15, so he kind of has to
Right,
wait for that. But here in the United States, it's going to be a very interesting year for him. I think he's broken through some of the. I don't know who Truly Adams is. Everyone on the circuit now knows who Truly Adams is.
mm,
If you're European on the European circuit, if you're in the United States circuit, his name is slowly going up the
bubbling to the
ranks.
top. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and I hate to see him in 2 years and where he's going to be when he's 15. He's
Okay.
and he has a head on his shoulder for a 13-year-old. You can have a meaningful adult conversation with him about racing.
Mm,
I'll just leave
okay.
it there.
Right. Right. Got
but
you. Got you.
but
Oh,
yeah, he's definitely one to watch out for sure. And I know you have to get into. I know we started this podcast stating how to get into, or what the journey is for a kid to get into Formula One or into professional racing. It really does start with karting. It really does start with open wheel, learning the mechanics, learning the car, getting a coach. It's not any different than any other sport that kids play today, whether it's soccer, basketball, or baseball, or
mm,
football. At an early age, you have to commit to it.
yeah.
And gymnastics is the same. Gymnastics and dance is probably the second or third most expensive out there as far as cost per month. But
Right.
by far, go-karting takes the cake, right? And I'm
Mm,
sure there's other sports out there that are expensive as well. But you have to, and then you have to do go-karting. You have to do it locally and domestically. A lot of it is moving to the East Coast right now. And once you get to a certain level, you have to travel, right?
mm.
Whether it's Mexico, whether it's Europe, you have to go in those circuits because the driving and the racing is a little different there as well, right?
And they're plugged in more into that pathway
It's
also.
plugged in more into that pathway. The connections are there. You have to meet people. You have to know. You have to be in the know. You,
Right.
you know, um, you have to know what's next and what age and what level and where you have to goal plan, right, for
Right.
that year, and then what you're going to do next year and what you're going to do the following year. And if you don't
Right.
know all that information, if you don't travel, if you don't set yourself up with the right people, you're going to be a year or two behind, and sometimes that's a window you can't afford.
Got you. So it's very time dependent.
Yes, very time
Right.
dependent. It's 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 awesome. I wish I had an opportunity when I was a kid. The only reason why I started the nonprofit is because I was trying to find myself.
Right.
And what I mean by myself, trying to find me, trying to find the next me, and say, hey, here's another way. What do you like doing? How's your hand-eye coordination? Do you like driving? Are cars a passion for you, like it was for me at
Right.
4 or 5? Do you want to get into racing? And help hopefully provide an avenue of financial support to allow them to do that and find the next American Formula One driver.
Yep. Yep.
Who's who's
Okay.
uh, who's the American Formula One driver right now?
Is it Magnuson? Even though he's Dutch, he's a U.S. citizen.
Yeah,
Right.
right. We should have more, right? We should have
Yeah. Yeah.
more,
Yeah. Yeah. The last one that was there was Scott Speed. Right. I think he was the last one that came through.
right?
Right. So yeah, it's oh, what's his name? Hold up, and I'm leaving out what's his name. There's a rookie that's an American driver. I can't remember his name right now. For Williams, right? He takes the other. He's doing the other car. Oh, he's a true. I think he's a true American. He's not like a citizen like Magnuson. Became a citizen. But I think
Okay, so you
it's
got Logan Sargent, you got
yeah,
Carlos
that's who I'm talking about.
Logan
Logan
Sargent.
Sargent. Yeah, yeah. He's a rookie, and his days might be numbered.
He's
So
from
yeah,
Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You're right.
yeah. Yeah.
Why do you
So
think
yeah.
his days are numbered?
Well, the way they talk about it, right? It seems to have working. He's still working on his consistency, and he's had a few of pileups, right? Because right, remember this year earlier, Williams didn't have whatever spare car, and he had to give up his car to Alex Albon, stuff like that.
Oh man.
Yeah, and so he was he's trying to push to make his name, and the way they were talking is as if his name was his days were numbered, right?
Wow.
Because he's not consistent, stuff like that. So,
So
it's
Kevin Magnuson, you said he has a United States citizen, but he's from
I,
Denmark.
yes, yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, Logan Sargent, I guess would be the true American, right? Because I think he
Right.
was born here. So yeah, to know the road is very important. Yes, and yeah, it's key to try to make that environment more accommodating for different people to show up and to do that, with skill to participate in that environment.
I haven't seen anyone. I haven't, and I'm not saying I've been around for a while. I've only been in this situation now for about 2.5 years, almost 3. I haven't heard anyone go to K1 go karting and then get into the professional realm. You have to go to and a lot of them are at professional racetracks, right? So if you go to VIR, they have a go karting racetrack. If you go to
Yeah.
Summit, they have a go karting racetrack. If you go to Silverstone in the UK, they have a go karting
Right.
racetrack and a program and a coaching program there. So usually you have to go to the professional tracks to really get the coaching and get the understand the dynamics of the industry. And I'll add this one part before we go here is that Truly works on his cart himself as well. Him and his dad. I'll see him working on part of the engine, a part of the chassis, changing out the tires, checking the tire pressure. All of that is helping him understand the dynamics of the car, and hopefully it translates when he gets into the Formula industry as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's good to know some of it, right? So that you can impart what you're feeling to the your team that's it's prepping the car for you, right? So that would be a good thing. But yeah, it's true because I think it's kind of similar to what Lewis said, and it seems like a lot of them go through it, where you have your parent helping you with it to a certain level until you get some recognition and and some more dollars so that you can move forward.
All right.
So yeah,
And
it's an interesting.
And Lewis lucked out. I mean, Lewis started off with remote control cars, and then he went into go karting.
Yeah.
And then his story is unbelievable. With his dad, like you said, had like 2, 3 jobs
Yep, to
to try
support
and
it. Yep.
generate the hundreds of thousands of dollars that's needed. And
Right.
then he finally got some sponsors, and then that from there it helped him move on. But yeah, I mean, he was in Europe, so it was easier to get the information needed in order to move on.
Yeah, because their racing is more tuned towards that in that way, right? Whereas we have NASCAR here, and stuff like that. So we have other options here. So
Yeah, plenty of options here, and that's a good point. Let's not forget to say that even though some kids' dream may be to get into Formula One, getting to Formula 2 or 3 is not the end of the world. And usually, if you're that skilled, you'll find yourself in another circuit, whether it be NASCAR, whether it be IMSA, whether it be European car driving. There's so many different avenues you can go outside of Formula One and make a great career and living for you and your family. So, of course, it's like getting into the NBA. Anybody would want to get into the NBA to make the most money as they can. But I've heard American players play overseas and make more money overseas than they do here because they're in the G League or something like that, right?
yeah.
So there's so many opportunities there. But to me, it was just really trying to find that individual that has a love for motorsports, but just can't afford it.
Yeah, don't know how to connect the dots to get started. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. No, I got you. It's true.
And you
That's
race,
true.
right?
I don't race. I do high performance driving. I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm not wheel to wheel because that takes, a bit more dollars to do wheel to wheel at a club level, right? It would be a
Right.
club level type of thing. But and a lot of commitment. But yeah, but I do the high performance driving stuff where you get out, you get an appreciation for what's involved in doing, going around a track and how your car performs
And what's the
underneath you.
cost? What's the cost of there?
It varies. So I like recently, if you go with the different clubs, you're talking about $600 for the entry, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be smart if you are going to have your car insured, and depending on the vehicle that you have insured, it can go from like say like $300 up to a couple thousand, depending on the type of car that you're going to be running on the track. And plus, then there is depending on the car, you might need to have it towed to the track if it's not anymore street worthy, because in order to go quicker on track, street cars are compromised, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
have to be on the street, whereas a track car is a track car. So you would have to come up with a tow vehicle and a trailer to take your car there. Plus, you go through the consumables, right? Depending on the type of car, it might eat through more consumer like tire, brakes. You change your oil. You do the brake fluid stuff, flushing. Things of that nature, basics. And then if there's anything else, then you have to you might have to get involved with a shop that does kind of racing that will help you work that out. So it can be costly. It's not an inexpensive thing, but it's the most inexpensive type of one I would say would be autocross. Right? It's just tires. You get some scuff marks on your stuff. You could do suspension. A little bit more, but yeah, but it'd be autocross. But when you go to the high performance driving, as you get better, you demand more from your car because you see the car's limitation is it being a street car. So you want to then improve the components on it so it can give you more capability when you're on track. So so it can be a slippery slope. That's the thing that you get into.
Well, that's all we have for today, boys and girls. Today was really just about the journey of a kid trying to get into motorsports or get into Formula One. I think we had a great conversation today between Ray and myself. If anyone has any questions, please put it in the chat. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions about our program, and we'll definitely respond back. And so don't forget, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the fellas. And don't forget to ring the notification bell and stay tuned to any updates on the fellas. And we'll see you next week.
Take it easy.